we have been focusing on this podcast a lot about the meaning of words. And one of the things I've been calling out is the misnomer of emergency management. Are we more managers? Are we coordinators? What are we? And the other side of that is emergency. Like, we think of first responders when we think of emergency, but it's usually much bigger than that. And as you noted to me a couple weeks ago, Europe calls that crisis management, right? You don't necessarily call it emergency management over there. You call it crisis management. Is there differences based off of your experiences between the U.S. and the international community of what they think emergency management or crisis management is?
That's a really great question. I think that terminology is incredibly important. So once you leave like the borders of the United States, like the terminology changes. So outside the borders of the US, there's a lot of talk about disaster risk reduction, Sendai framework under the UN and everything else that goes along with that. And so there's a global sort of perspective on disaster risk reduction and what that means. And then you start encountering terms in that response sort of phase. You encounter terms such as civil protection, civil emergency planning, crisis management, and other aspects like that. Emergency management is still there, but it's not within the context that we know of as in the United States. And what was really challenging for me when I first started working internationally is sort of, coming to an understanding of what that means in terms of what we are indoctrinated with in the United States, in terms of understanding FEMA, understanding the National Response Plan and frameworks and everything else that goes along with that. But then you encounter different societies where, there's no reference point for that. And especially when, working internationally in terms of in post-conflict and operational environments where everybody's focused and spending millions of dollars in terms of building police forces, rebuilding rule of law, court systems, building the military and security infrastructure, but nobody builds fire brigades or fire departments, for example.
Where your
pre-hospital care,
immediate needs of critical infrastructure need to be protected. Yeah.
Exactly. And so it was really difficult to try and understand like what programs were actually functional and operating in terms of building out these capacities. And you'll find them, there's really not any that are doing that. And it just really became an issue of trying to understand all the terminology that's surrounding all these different things. And what I have sort of discovered and found is that we all are sort of have the same intent in what we're trying to do, which is build, more, resilient societies, if we want to call it that, or building more safe communities. But at the same time, we're using different terminology to phrase that.